It is not a unique question to ask what is womanhood, but it is a unique experience to find that answer in your own life. I've never been able to answer that. What is womanhood? For me, it used to be a matter of fact existence. Womanhood is something that I defined. It wasn't something that used to define me. And perhaps I was drawn to these books because I saw the author as being the writer of their own life, an active participant in creating the idea of their womanhood. Do clash with the idea of a societal expectation of what being a woman is or what being a girl is, and at the same time, they themselves define their own notions. The latter is something which has always been quite relevant to me. I remember that being a woman or being a girl came to the foreground when it was somebody else who told me what is and what is not under this label of being a woman. Till then, you do not necessarily question your identity in these terms. So, these stories are at this very juncture of seeking to bridge this gap between human and woman, and to bring out the potentialities which exist in all of us beyond what is constrained under a label. For this video, I thought of talking about 4 books which I felt really impacted my perspective on looking at this question of what is womanhood. These are 4 authors from different areas of the world. I think I would like to begin with my favorite, Clarice Lispector, Near to the Wild Heart. I came across Clarice Lispector through this meme that somebody had made, and for some reason it was quite attractive to me. I just felt like I had to somehow read this author now. So I came across this book and I bought it. I don't think I will ever regret this decision of buying this book. Near to the Wild Heart, it addresses questions of identity, of belonging, of existence beyond conformity to an idea of being. This work is actually her debut novel, and it was published, I believe, when she was 23 years old. We follow the journey of the protagonist from when she's a child to her marriage and beyond that, no spoilers, and how in different stages of her life we actually see her grow up. So the uniqueness of this book is the writing style. It's a stream of consciousness style. It is absolutely intimate in nature. It brings you so close to the inner world of the protagonist that the feeling that it produces is it's almost indescribable. So the writing is reflective, it's introspective, and it's dreamy. Once you're reading the book, you absolutely forget that you are in the act of reading. What I got from this book was this notion of being free, this idea of freedom, of being alive first and foremost, of breaking the constraints of how life should be led. You will also like this book if you are at that point in your life where you're trying to seek connections through solitude. It's a reflection on solitude, on the necessary solitude of existence. It is also a story about growing up as a social being, of creating relationships and trying to find yourself through these relationships, and finally understanding what it means to be human. This was a book I came across by accident. You can see Ismat Chughta's work. It's a collection of stories which are talking about childhood, and it's one of them which is actually an excerpt that's not even the whole story, is the one that I want to talk about. It's a highly raw piece of work. What I got in the excerpt is a really small portion of what actually the book is. I had to look up what the book is about, and it is this story of a really fiery and wild child who grew up in this house. But the excerpt, I'll just talk about the excerpt over here. It's a small glimpse into her childhood. You're introduced to this young girl whose very birth was actually not something which was celebrated. It was not a birth other people in the house wanted. But the child grows, and she grows with a stubbornness which reminds you of roots of a plant. You've seen how stubbornly they cling to the earth. The author's writing is beautiful in that, even though we all have been kids at one point in our lives, it doesn't mean that all of us know really how to articulate what it was to be a kid. The creativity which is there, which is also there in Clarice Lispector's work very prominently, that is what hooks you. If you're also looking for another recommendation in stream of consciousness style, it's this book. Belger is a fantastic commentary on womanhood and mental distress. The Belger is actually a semi-autobiographical work. It introduces us to the protagonist, Esther Greenwood, who is living in 1950s America. And the idea of the Belger is that it is actually a metaphor for the constraints social expectations place on women. And we follow Greenwood through her journey, understanding the space that her own ambitions and desires have against this backdrop. The Belger was quite an evocative piece of work because of the author's own history, which actually sheds more light on the nature of the work, and it feels much more closer to you when you read it. What it took from Platt's work was this unquestioned sickness which is inherently there in accepted ways of living. Criticism of institutions like marriage and family, they just didn't come out of nowhere. These institutions themselves were making what in today's term we'll call, it was making people sick. It still makes people sick. Platt's work is, like I said, it's a wonderful commentary on what it means to be a woman, and just like Liz Spector, wanting to live beyond the conformity. This brings me to the last of the recommendations, and this is a book that I read a really long time back, Reading Lolita in Tehran. The primary theme for me in this book was the importance and the revolutionary nature of being able to read something. It's this fascinating work about a woman and her relationship to books, which in today's political climate also stands to be very important. The idea that we are literate enough to read, it's often taken for granted. We do not understand the power that a piece of work can have, because if they weren't powerful, things would not be forbidden or banned. This book is a testimony to the fear that people have about ideas. A whole abstract political system can be fearful of things such as a book. It's set in 1950s Iran, and it talks about this college professor who's completed her job, and he's picked up, I believe, 8 students of hers who come to her house once every week to discuss literature. The lives of women during that revolution and after, and everything in between. That room where they discuss the books, it sort of becomes a window for us, the reader, to look into that aspect of her life. Even though I've read this book quite a few years back, I do remember having this moment where I truly realized just how dangerous the world can be for a woman. It gave me a sense of community. This book, even though we are world apart, something or the other strikes you and you can see some form of commonality.